Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime Series with me, Britz, leading the charge with insights, information, and ultimately effective results. Today's episode is sponsored by HelloCoach, a platform dedicated to empowering individuals through personalized coaching experiences that drive clarity, growth, and success. If you want to check it out, check out the links in the description box below. You can go and check out that offer. Joining me in today's leadership and coaching segment, back with us, Linda Remke, and she is the Chief Vision Officer from HelloCoach. Welcome back, Linda. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I'm doing very well. And thank you so much for having us again, or having me today.
So, last time we were here, we chatted about your story. We spoke about a bit about your background and how we got to where you are today and how you got to creating the HelloCoach platform. But today we're going to speak about a bit of more practicalities. The GROW model is it's a very well-known coaching model out there. I want to give some background about this GROW model. It originates from the field of sports coaching and was later adapted for use in personal and professional development. It was developed in the 1980s by John Whitmore, a pioneer in executive coaching, and his colleagues Graham Alexander and Alan Fine. This was heavily influenced by the principles of Timothy Galloway's inner game theory, which emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and minimizing internal interference by unlocking potential. So Whitmore and his team took these ideas and structured them into the GROW framework, and making it a practical and widely used coaching tool for goal setting and problem solving in various contexts. So Linda, why, from a master practitioner and from a master coach's perspective, why do you think this is a really good framework?
Well, as you mentioned, it's widely recognized in the coaching fraternity. It's actually a cornerstone of most of the coaching from various entities. I think on the HelloCoach, or I believe on the HelloCoach platform, we have a varied amount of coaches that are specialized and expert coaches, and they each have their own essence and their own training. So, for instance, like NLP training and the integral training, etc. For us to be able to offer a consistent delivery to market, we chose the GROW model, as most coaches have been exposed to it. And it is a simple model that is very meaningful and works towards meaningful outcomes. And that's really our consistent message that we carry through in our coaching methodology with every session.
What I love about the GROW model, and for those who are listening, the GROW model is the acronym, guys, for goals, reality, options, and A or will forward. And we will unpack that a little bit more. But what I've noticed in the GROW model is that it's a model that's applicable just to about any scenario. And I love that, because very often in a coaching session, it gives us a practical process and strategy to follow, and also a bit of structure to go, okay, so if you know what the goal is, tuning into that reality, what are your options and what is your way forward from there? What techniques or approaches, when we start off with a goal, for example, does HelloCoach recommend for helping clients define clarity and achieving those goals during the coaching process? Because I think that goal is important to start with.
So our differentiator out there as HelloCoach is we are topic-based, and we offer a 40-minute coaching session promising to move you from A to B with every session. We call them impact sessions. What we have found that once selects their topic, selects their coach, and the two meet in their session, they can identify the topic that's been selected and go into the GROW model immediately. What about this topic that you've selected would you like to achieve by the end of the session today? So we get stuck into the goal immediately. Your normal coaching sessions normally are a client could arrive and say, listen, I actually don't know what I want to discuss today. And HelloCoach has its methodology is to assist an individual to select what they want to focus on in the coaching session. And the GROW model assists that greatly in our sessions. We then explore the goal, and then we start unpacking the realities around it. As you mentioned, just what the acronym stands for. And it's looking at what's coming up for them and where are they currently, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And from that discussion, we then start exploring possibilities, which are the options and the opportunities that they may want to consider taking forward And of course, from there, we go into the W of the way forward, where you then agree to the actions that you will be taking as an individual, and then, of course, agree to the accountability thereof. So for us on our platform, very important to be able to utilize our 40 minutes efficiently. And when as the coach and the client connect, they can get into the topic immediately and start unpacking and achieving the outcomes that they would like to achieve for this.
I just want to touch on, obviously with the goal. So, essentially, I believe that coaching in itself is action orientated. And when we speak about the goal, if you're not clear about the goal in the first place, you probably won't know where you go and what it is you want to achieve. So creating some clarity. Sometimes people don't know where they want to go and they're not quite sure. A well-equipped process really, especially with the grow model, helps you really understand if this is the goal. If it's not clear, it might be quite vague on how you get there, right? I like the fact that it really starts, because I think the step number 2 of the reality of the situation. And I remember growing up with my brother, he always said to me, yeah, but you have to be realistic about the situation. And I hated the fact that you had to be realistic because I didn't want to be realistic. But what's beautiful about psychology also teaches us that when we have that radical acceptance of what is happening, what current scenario, we also have a different frame of going, knowing where you are right now also gives you a wonderful objective or different reasoning of where you could potentially be going. I think that's why understanding the reality obviously in a very safe and non-judged perspective, the understanding that reality is so important. From your perspective, how have you noticed that people tend to avoid their reality, or they're scared of that?
So what I just love about the coaching container that we create, as you say, it's a psychological safe space, it's non-judgmental, and it's really allowing a person to become and inviting them and giving them permission to be what they need to be in that session. So once you've identified the goal and you start unpacking the realities, we create this thinking space to allow individuals to say, wow, I've never really thought what is possibly holding me back in me achieving this goal. So the reality is really an important step that follows after the goal setting in order for a coach to identify where the client may find themselves and go deeper there, and allowing the client to be able to go deeper in order for them to identify what's working, what's not working, and what else is there, what else is not been identified yet. And allowing and probing the client in the reality space really invites them to go there, which we don't normally have time to do personally, unless it's mediated or facilitated. We don't actually give ourselves permission to do that. And there's lots more beyond what we initially identified the realities could be. So once we've identified those, what could be the barriers for us, that's the barriers towards achieving the goals? What are our limiting beliefs? What are our bedrock beliefs? We can then pinpoint that and say, all right, so with this knowledge now, how do we go to the next step now? What are the opportunities?
And as you were saying that, it occurs to me that you and I have been in a number of meetings, and we both do this, do that whole active listening. And I think that helps with creating that feeling safe, non-judged kind of perspective, because from a coach's position, that's very necessary, and very specifically the position we hold often is to create that space, and we hold space for people because then it also feels easier to share the reality that they don't necessarily want to speak about and acknowledge. But that active listening approach, it really enables the moment for us to be able to feel safe to unpack your reality as it is. And as as a coach, as someone in observation of your reality, we're just holding that space for you. And it's such a beautiful process, because like you say, we don't actively do this, but when you have someone facilitating that process with you, it becomes far easier and clearer to be objective or framed in a different perspective. And that's what I really love about the coaching process of going through the grow model.
Speaking to that, what comes up for me strongly, Kevin, is people don't feel heard. And that's with most of my sessions. People don't feel heard and seen. And the coaching conversation, as you say, the active listening really speaks into, I hear you,
Mm.
I see you. That gives them the permission to start exploring further where they may not even considered going yet. And when I look at our fast-paced lives at the moment, all the change that has happened since COVID days, there's just been so much change. There's so much uncertainty. We actually don't know what's happening within ourselves. We haven't had the opportunity to go there and say, what is it? What have I made it out to mean to me? And why do I feel so stuck? I can't understand where I'm at. And being able to have someone actively listen to you, speaking to what you just said now, feeling heard and feeling seen is priceless, because I don't believe that happens in the daily deliverables that we need to deliver on a daily basis, and that's in personal space as well as in life, okay, in business. So it's a really conscious decision one makes, or intention decision, to say, I want to be coached, I want to know more, I want to go there. Courage, courage to go there, because be surprised what's going to come up. But every part that is revealed from self in those conversations, becomes pure gold to start working with and start journeying with the client towards an outcome that they may never even anticipated, much more than what they had right from the beginning. So
I couldn't agree more. And I think the just being seen and heard, I'm obsessed with human behavior. And that's why I do a lot of TikToking, and I watch people doing lives, and there are people on social media that spend time that have their cameras on being watched. So interesting. And they randomly talk about random stuff. And I think there must be a certain psyche that we are currently experiencing in the world where we need someone to listen to us, someone to see us and hear us, right? And it's got to the degree, it's like, I don't care who's listening, as long as someone's listening, right? But when you get to a coaching perspective, it's true. You really start, and that's what great coaches do. And thankfully, HelloCoach has got so many well-versed coaches doing this, is
yes.
hold that space for people. And once you allow to unpack, the goal that comes out of that is quite phenomenal. And you go, wow, I didn't even see it that way. I didn't think of that. And purely being able to hold space. And 90% of the time when I'm doing coaching, I'm not the one talking. I'm the one listening and making notes and going, okay, that's interesting. And that's it. Like, how do we connect these dots? And that's interesting. Put that up, right? That reality moment, as much as sometimes we don't like the reality moment, a beautiful moment to experience once you allow yourself to experience the reality of what it is.
Absolutely. And Nancy Klein's book, Time to Think, is just an amazing resource. And I invite our viewers today to go and explore it if they haven't been there. What it means to create an environment where you really invite others to engage, to think first, and then start engaging. We know coaching is not about a directive process where we advise. It's about self-revelation. Because when we reveal to self, and we unlock our own resources, it becomes us. We become aware of that, and we start stepping into it and leaning into it. And that's where the personal growth starts happening, and seeing the results of that. I just love the process.
And then from that reality, we move into, let's consider what are some of the options and what strategies are encouraged, and how do we brainstorm some creative and actionable options without feeling overwhelmed. Usually prefacing it like that is also a beautiful position for the coach and the coachee to kind of going, you don't need to climb a mountain right now. What we just need to do is like, what is your next step? Very often we look at a goal and we go, oh, this goal is so unachievable. It's so big. How am I ever going to get there? And when you break it down into a practical process like that, you get to the reality and the options. And suddenly you go, well, what about these options? And what about these options? And what about this? And what else? From a coaching perspective, it's always the reframing of thinking and reframing of language that really ties someone into going, oh yeah, I never thought of that, or I didn't see it in that context before. And I think that option, creating those options in a conversation to going, well, have you seen it here? Have you seen it there? That's the beauty about the grow model.
Yes. No, absolutely. And how do they say, how do you eat an elephant? It's really about that, Kevin. It's about how do we just move forward from today with whatever's come up to the next time we connect. And there's so much that happens from one session to the next, because the heightened awareness of, wow, I actually have options. I actually have opportunities brings hope again. I believe this is what coaching does. It brings hope, and there are ways of moving forward. But that needs to be explored in their realities of where they're at, that we can go into saying, okay, with all of this that you've shared with us today or with me today, what are your options? What are the opportunities that come up for you right now? And that helps to clarify, to say one step forward will get me closer to where I possibly want to, where I'm aspiring to be, to move closer towards my overall goal of growing as a leader, growing as a better parent, growing as a better person. And that's really what it's all about. And those options and opportunities come from the individual self again. So it's once again coming from within, which makes it there, and they can actually embrace that and say, wow, it's in my hands now to say, what will we do about this now? What am I going to go and take action on? What is my way forward? And that gets us into the W. Hey, so look how we're moving from the one to the next in this discussion as well.
And what's interesting about the way forward, it's not for me, and I always want to hold my clients accountable, because part of that way forward is it's nice to see what your next steps are, but also part of that is what will you do? And as an accountability measure, I'll ask, okay, so this is your way forward. This is the road you're traveling. These are the finite steps that we are taking towards this goal. I add to that will forward, forward movement. I'll say, okay, so by when?
Yes.
Right? Give them a date, give them a kind of an accountability action towards, because then it's the forward. And I always find that, from a coaching perspective, is once you start taking even those micro behaviors or micro steps towards creating that new version or vision that you have for your life, essentially, even at a micro level, because you're committed to it and you're starting to do one thing a day or one thing a week for that matter, you also start creating evidence towards building the actual evidence to prove that you can do this. So brain is also buying into the fact that you're buying into the ability that you have to do and achieve the goal that you set out. So I think that commitment part and what will you do is as so important as important as the way that you do or go forward, right?
Absolutely. And, it's even in that space that we explore different ways and even reframe it for the client, because possibly they say, well, I can do this, but what about that and whatever. And we can actually help them reframe it towards the goal or the outcome and the accountability. But you're absolutely right. You can actually say, what will I do by when? There's another W. And it's the way forward, so I'm all about acronyms, so excuse me for bringing that through, but it's so actionable. But what I've done is I've actually married the life balance wheel with the grow model in a way, because of its methodology. So when one performs their life balance wheel and they demarcate where they're at, and they see the picture, you say, okay, so what is coming up for you when you see this picture? What areas would you like to start focusing on first? And then from there onwards, okay, so what of what we just discussed would you like to do by when? So once again, you bring in that action-orientated, solution-focused approach of what coaching is all about, and helping the individual to identify that, to feel they need to be firstly committed with the commitment of, I'm going to go forward by when, and then taking the accountability, because they may re-engage with that coach afterwards, or they will re-engage, and they're going to have to show up and show the full commitment towards the process. We know if you are not committed to coaching, you will not get the best out of coaching.
Yeah.
We just know that. So for individuals to truly get the benefit of what coaching brings is their commitment and their accountability towards the process.
And I love that you bring the wheel of life into this conversation. And maybe this is what, a conversation we'll have another day. But a mentor of mine shared the wheel of life because, the wheel of life has so many aspects to it. So, but am I doing well at my health? Or am I doing well at my finance? And it feels so pressured. And he said to me, instead of trying to force your way into getting 10 out of 10 all the time in every area, think of it as a beautiful symphony. Right? Sometimes in the orchestra, sometimes the brass plays, and sometimes the violins play, and then sometimes the whole orchestra play. So there's this constant movement, but essentially the entirety of the song becomes the symphony. And I think that's such a beautiful metaphor to think around the wheel of life, and especially when you're putting your goals and the grow model in place, because we do want to grow at every level in every area. But sometimes some areas are easier than other areas to grow. When we think of that symphony, it's not a way of forcing your way through to the final kind of outcome, but rather a movement, an encompassing of all in totality, rather than, a 10 out of 10 on everything. I think that's such a nice way to think of it, because it gives you a way to go about doing it, and not being hard on yourself when it's not a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and this is what I love about the life balance wheel, especially when you engage with the client right from the beginning and the level of awareness is not there. They have not possibly had the ability to be engaging in a process of growing in awareness. And that tool highlights or accelerates a level of awareness in a very short space of time. It brings those facets of life into the consciousness, because we live a very subconscious life. I always use the example as when you brush your teeth in the morning, you automatically take the toothbrush with the right hand and the toothpaste with the left hand. That's how I do it, unless you're left-handed. You don't even think about it. You take it for granted. I always challenge them, tomorrow morning, do it the other way around and see how much effort it takes to be able to perform the same action, and what you've had to bring to the consciousness to be able to do that. And that's what the life balance wheel does. And as you say, it doesn't all have to be tens. Then you've arrived and there's no more. What more can we do? It's all about achieving the roundness of the life balance wheel, which is balance. We know we spike with one of the facets every now and again, as you say. But then what gives when you spike there? So that awareness of how do we manage that life balance wheel so well. That, as you say, that might be our next discussion, that we can unpack the life balance wheel, because it has so many positive outcomes around that. But the grow model has the ability to be incorporated into any discussion, a tool that you're utilizing, and it has the ability to, I know in my training that I received was we were promoted to come up with our own coaching models. And the grow model is what we aligned to. So my first model that came up was called brand. I came from a branding background and I'm passionate about brands. I love it. I used to own advertising agencies and brands there. What did brand mean in the acronym? It was benchmarking the session. There's the goal. R is the realities, aligning to the grow model. A was articulating those to a deeper level. N was new thinking, which is the opportunities. And then D was do, which is what am I going to do going forward now? My brand model was aligned to grow. And I believe in many instances that is where various coaching models are developed from. And grow is just the constant there, because it's simple to be able to integrate into various levels of thinking that we apply in the coaching fraternity.
And I love that. And that's what I was, one of my other areas that I was going to ask you now, or at least one of the other ideas of where do we use the grow model? Where can we use the grow model? And essentially, I was thinking from a team perspective. From a team perspective, it's so beautiful when we go, well, what is the goal for the team? And suddenly everybody has some input. What is the reality of the team? Everyone has input. What's the opportunities? We look at in relationships when you're as a partner with your partner and say, well, what is our grow model for our partnership? Look at leadership for that matter. And you say, okay, what type of leader are you becoming? Do you want to? Where have you also found areas that you can actually use it? The fact that you're coming up with your own model with brand, I love that. I think that's such a beautiful acronym. Where have you also noticed that you could actually use the grow model?
Yeah, I think you've covered most of those areas, to be quite honest. You know, it's in your personal life, personal relationships, even relationships with the children. Although I must tell you, and I think most coaches experience this, is when you become a coach and you go into this new method of dialogue, which is probing, and in order to create a thinking space, I get, Mom, don't coach me. Linda, don't coach me now. It's like you get the resistance, but it is powerful. It's adaptable in all areas. And I'm so glad you brought it up in leadership. Absolutely. Any container you're trying to create, once you've contracted that container and it's a new journey, there's nothing better to incorporate the grow model. Even in the group coaching session online, in the team interventions, as you said. So it's very applicable to all facets of our lives without driving it too hard in a coaching methodology. It's really successful in the personal space as well. Very much so.
And I think for me, the last thing that I would add to the grow model or the thinking around this is from a human behaviors perspective, as an entry point, I always say to my clients or to any kind of facilitation and team facilitation I do is the brain likes a structure and it likes a strategy. And the GROW, straight away, we've got a structure, right? All we need to know is now, what is my strategy? So the goal is that, the reality is that, the options are that, and this is the way forward. Suddenly, you have structure and strategy in a 4-point system that gives you an immediate, obvious recognition to what are we doing and where are we going, right? And I always, and I've done this with so many teams just in the last year that I'm thinking of, with so many teams that use this as a very practical model. And you kind of go, a lot of people don't know it. They don't know that you could use this and apply it, such variation. And I think that's what's beautiful about the grow model in itself. It's simple, but it creates structure, it creates strategy.
Yeah.
That's what humans love.
Absolutely. And it also then helps set expectations, if I can finish it with that. And that's part of the strategy. But I think if I have to reiterate why on HelloCoach we utilize the grow model, the reason for that is I want every coach to celebrate who they are. They are experts at their topics. They have life's experience. They've been qualified in what they've decided to be qualified in. They're part of bodies of coaching and mentoring with a lot of framework. And by allowing them to follow a framework allows one to set those boundaries in order for you to be creative in that space, but more than that, to be who you are as coach. So we really invite each coach on our platform to really bring their flavor and essence through, because there's no two coaches the same. We all have our unique approaches. The structure is what is in place there for each one to be able to celebrate that on the coaching platform. And that's where clients could, have the ability to speak to a coach in conflict resolution by using the grow model. I'm just using this as an example. We've realized the conflict is actually not stemming from the workplace, because it's in a workplace situation. The person is possibly going through a divorce. And the challenge that the divorce is bringing up is coming through into the workplace. And by being able to do that and identify that in that one coaching session, because you can book one session only, or you can decide I want to journey with this one coach around conflict resolution going forward. But the coach on the platform will say, you know what, I would promote you to speak to a divorce coach on the platform too. Go and explore that, unpack that, and see what you need to unlock there, and then let's come back to me, and then we can unpack the conflict resolution from the onwards. So yes, that's really what the HelloCoach platform is all about, and we invite others to go there.
Just to add to what you're saying, and that's what's so beautiful about the platform is the 34 different categories, and it's across the board, from everything from personal to work to lifestyle. And you go, well, how can you be supported at every level? And you can go back to the coach that you started with, creating strategy. Absolutely. Just to close off today's conversation, we're speaking about the GROW model, and it originates from coaching and was later used in personal and professional development. Linda, last closing sentiments around what you would like to share about this model and about HelloCoach.
Wow. I think it's a go-to model for consistency. And when clients start in what it's about, because they'll start journeying with you and realize what the methodology is, they will arrive at the session more prepared as well. So it also helps the individual to steer towards what outcomes they would like to acquire when they engage with a coach and be on a coaching journey with a coach. I think in a way, as much as what the coach uses it, we never use it as a GROW. It's just part of how we conduct ourselves. But they will start picking up of how effective it is when I'm engaging with my coach. That I enter at this point and I exit at this point. It's just beautiful. You just know what that's all about. From a HelloCoach platform perspective, I cannot wait for 2025. I believe it's going to be a year of thrive. Okay, so we all need to go and rest well and reflect and really reflect on the 2024 year, which I spoke into being about more. I realized it was a tough year for many people, many businesses, organizations globally. It's been a tough year, but I've already reflected on that. And I say this year of more was about laying more solid foundations, evolving our offers to market, redirecting, re-regulating our thought processes, which the coaching conversation does so well, and really seeking, listen, what other options there are and possibilities going forward. So I'd like to leave with one note, if I can. I want you to see December as a declutter your home space, detox your schedule, de-stress your mind, and for you to decide what really matters most is my invitation to our viewers today. And Kevin, to you too. And thank you for this opportunity. We are just love being part of your process. And we're so thrilled that you are so enthusiastic about our platform and the offer tomorrow. So we look forward to the 2025 where we're going to thrive together.
Absolutely. She's clearly you can hear, guys, the chief vision officer from HelloCoach. And go and Decemberize your life a little bit and go and check out what that's all about. Linda Remke, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for just unpacking this with me. And I look forward to sharing the insights, more insights in the new year. And looking forward to 2025.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to the viewers. And I just wish you all a blessed holiday and festive season, and be blessed and be safe.